And I find that the Lord has chosen to get me active in a number of areas. And I've been very grateful for that. I've had a good experience during my life, all the way from picking cotton and milking cows when I was a young boy during the Depression years, and many of you remember those years, to the time when I saw the American flag raised over the hotel that I happened to be staying in out in China. Quite a variety of experiences, I might say. Going back to the Depression years that many of us are familiar with, as a boy, I was one of 7 in our family. And you know how it was during those years when there was little or nothing to eat and very little employment opportunities. My dad happened to be a principal of a grammar school. My mother was a licensed vocational nurse. And all 7 of the children were expected to do something to earn a few dollars to get by during the Depression year. Anybody remember that? A number of you. I can remember milking cows every morning, every evening, and I learned then that I never wanted to be a dairyman when I grew up. And then I used to go out and pick cotton, drag one of those big sacks behind me. And after I had dragged that sack all day long, I might have 20 pounds of cotton. And you were paid by the pound. And then I went on to school, tried to learn a few things as time went by. First it was grammar school. When I went to school, my dad was my teacher for a time. And then on to high school, and I had no opportunity to go to the church school because there wasn't enough money to pay the tuition. So I went to public school all the way through the 11th grade. And then during my senior year, I went up to work with my aunt and uncle who were in Lodi at the time. They had a mortuary there, and I lived in one of the rooms in the mortuary and went to my final year at Lodi Academy. And I could tell you some stories about that experience, but I won't. And then after graduating from Lodi Academy, went on to college in San Francisco, got my bachelor's degree, and I didn't quite know what I was going to do with that. But I entered the mortuary field and worked for 15 or 16 years in that experience. And let me tell you, that's an experience. And then one day, someone invited me to join in hospital work. Quite a change, experience. And during that some 30 years that I worked in the hospital field, I had opportunity to serve in a smaller hospital, doing what administrators usually do. And then one morning, about 6 o'clock, someone called me from Hong Kong in the Far East, He says, "Hi, Virgil, how are you? How would you like to come to Hong Kong?" And I said to him, "Why would I do such a thing as that?" And he says, "Well, we need an administrator for our hospital. Why don't you come out, look us over, and see what you think?" So my wife and I went out to Hong Kong for a week, evaluated the program there, ultimately came to Hong Kong, where I was the president of the hospital for a number of years. And while there, among other things, I became acquainted with one of the wealthiest men in the world. And I think I have touched upon this story, so I won't elaborate. Touched upon this story before, but a man that was one of the 50 wealthiest men in the world. He became a good friend, came to our hospital for his health care, dental care, whatever was necessary. He was the movie and television tycoon for all of Asia. He had made over 1,000 movies and served needs of all of Asia in that deal. So I worked with him for a number of years. He wanted to see a new hospital built in mainland China. And he says, "If you folks will operate it, I'll pay for it." And with that, he says he wondered what it would cost to build. I had no idea with the Chinese exchange rate, but I did some inquiring, and we talked many times, and he finally gave us $100 million to build a new hospital in China, which we did, 400 beds. Since expanded many times, and it's now 1,200 beds, one of the largest hospitals in China, and a remarkable facility, to say the least. After those experiences, I had the privilege of joining 3 other gentlemen to go into Russia for an experience that I would still like to be involved in if I were just a little younger, quite a bit younger, in fact. But we went out and had an evangelistic series in the city of Kaliningrad, which is up on the Baltic Sea. At the time, we had a little church there with 1 light bulb that illuminated the room and 40 members. While we were there, we had some remarkable experiences. We finally found a place that we could rent, and we had 6 what we call the bully boys came to the outside of the building when our meetings were about to be held and would try to frighten the people away. Don't go and listen to these heretics. It's that terrible information. You don't want to go anywhere near this place. In spite of that, first night we had 200 or 300 people. Then we were interviewed on television. And when we had that exposure in Kaliningrad on the television, suddenly the people were curious what it was all about. The next night there were 800, and then it was 1,200, and then we no longer could get them in the room for the meetings, and so we had to have meetings twice every evening. And you know, the Lord blessed our efforts there. And when we left Leningrad, instead of 40 in the church, there were 160. And then after we left, we learned that there were 200 more that came into the church. The Lord blessed us. From a boy in the cotton fields over in the valley and milking those cows, the Lord gave me the opportunity to serve him in a variety of ways, for which I'm most grateful. I will never forget